Hey, loan officers, it's Scott Groves with Consolidated Coaching. Wanted to go live because so many of you have been graciously watching our videos as we try to drive membership to the coaching program. I'm going to give you East Coasters who might just be getting to work and settling into your computer one last chance to sign up at the $59. But for real this time, the link's going to go away after this video is over. So if you're on the East Coast and you're watching this, sign up. It's going to be your last chance to get $59 a month coaching before the price goes up. But for everybody else that's not ready to yet get into coaching, I just wanted to give you some type of value add here that you can use in your business. This will probably be about a 10 to 15 minute video. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of appreciative inquiry to solve problems. Appreciative inquiry to solve problems. And I like to joke about it in our industry as the other AI, the other AI. There's a lot of arguments going on with some text threads that I'm part of across the industry. It was talked about at Mastermind. Are we getting to a point where artificial intelligence, just another name for streamlined computers, are getting closer and closer and closer to being able to replace certain activities that we do as loan officers, as support people, as back office functions? And there's a lot of fear and a lot of worry and some really heated arguments going on as to whether or not AI is going to replace the human being in the mortgage transaction. I lay somewhere between probably in my lifetime, but definitely not in the next 12 months. So that's where I stand on it. But I think what we can do is we can use appreciative inquiry, the other AI, as a way to solve many of our problems, make our systems better, and then basically add more value as the human being component. So I'm going to show you how that works. And if you want to know more about this, I don't claim to be an expert on appreciative inquiry theory. You can check out this guy named David Cooperrider, who came up with this idea in the late 70s, early 80s as his PhD thesis for business management. You might also want to check out this book by Jackie Stravos. It's called Conversations Worth Having. I belong to a coaching program through the Flourishing Leadership Institute. They do seminars both in October and April. So if you're really interested in this stuff, shoot me a private message. I'll put you in touch with John Berghoff and the Flourishing Leadership Institute. They're one of the few people that are authorized to teach this kind of information directly from the founder, David Cooperrider. And ironically, after all those names, just to give her credit, Maureen McKenna is the one who came up with this AIR cycle in order to solve problems with appreciative inquiry. So here, first, let me present you the problem, and then we'll get to the solution. So we're in the mortgage industry, and we have a problem, right? We have a problem, or we have an error. So here's our problem, here's our error, here's our dilemma, here's our screw up, here's something that's going wrong, right? So what do we do as loan officers, especially smart, seasoned loan officers? We jump in, we immediately start triaging the problem, and we go for a fix, right? So we fix the problem, we triage the problem, we solve the problem. We do all those things that make us great loan officers, and we're jumping in, we're fixing. But then guess what happens, right? Another problem, another fix, another problem, another fix. And what we call this space right here, this space of constantly finding problems, solving problems, what we can call this, if you want to, kind of a computer term, we can call this the error loop. And better loan officers will know how to solve these problems faster and get through this error loop faster and come up with more creative solutions and put more files together. But the bottom line is really all they're doing is they're going in this circle of, I've got a problem, I fix it, I'm stuck in the error loop. I got a problem, I fix it, I get stuck in the error loop. And what ends up happening over a few months, a few years, a career, this is where all the anger, tension, passive aggressiveness, I won't write the whole word aggressiveness, meltdowns. If you've ever had an ops person just walk out on you, I've been there. If you've ever quit a company in frustration, I've been there. If you've ever just had a day where you didn't feel like you could hang, It's because you were stuck in this error loop over and over and over again. And it was this anger, tension, passive aggressiveness, meltdown. This started to set in because you're in this error loop. Here's what the idea of appreciative inquiry looks like. These two are actually not opposites, okay? Having a problem and then fixing or triaging the problem, those are not opposites. The opposite of having a problem is actually not having the problem at all and striving for excellence. So the idea of appreciative inquiry is, how do we get past this problem? How do we get past this error loop? And we get to a point of excellence where we're now entering a growth stage, right? And we're solving problems permanently. So prob, solve. You know, how do we get here? Because having a problem and then just fixing it over and over again, those aren't opposites. Opposites are moving past the fix-it solutions, getting to this idea of growth and excellence. And that's kind of where the beauty happens, right? And we want to constantly be striving for this idea of excellence. Now, we're not going to solve all problems. We're not going to be perfect. But if we constantly strive for excellence, how can we just make our job a little bit better and our life a little bit better? So in talking to both Jackie Stravos and Maureen McKenna at the last training we were at, you know, they're PhD holders. They've written, obviously, books on this subject. I'm always skeptical about this stuff. And I said, yeah. But, you know, Maureen, Jackie, let's be real. I'm a loan officer. My problems are super unique. And this is all nice in theory. But look, when I have a problem and the appraisal comes in $50,000 below the contract price, the bottom line is the appraisal comes in $50,000 below the contract price. I've got a problem, a deal that might fall apart, agents that might be pissed off, people that might cancel, move on to the next deal, and a buyer that might lose their house. Like, solve that for me, Miss Smarty Pants. So like any good people that are looking for appreciative inquiry solutions, meaning they ask good questions, they ask some questions about what it means for the appraisal to come in below the contract price. You know, ask me about other things that could happen. And they said, okay, so let's go into this air cycle. All right. First of all, let's appreciate two things. Let's appreciate the fact that your company is not trying to kill the deal. The appraiser wasn't trying to kill the deal. They were pulling on their, you know, professionalism, experience, the tools available to them. The appraiser was just trying to do his job. So let's appreciate the fact that this is kind of a neutral proposition. It is what it is, meaning the appraisal is where it is, and you solve no problems by being angry at the appraiser. Okay, then let's appreciate a time in the past where you had an appraisal come in below the contract price, but you were still able to close the deal. So these two professors, they asked Scott, can you point back to a time where you had an appraisal come in below the contract price, but you were still able to close the deal? And I said, yeah, you know, come to think of it, in our market, properties are going up fairly quickly in value, a lot of hot neighborhoods. You know, we've had some conversations with clients up front that, hey, this appraisal might come in low. What's our backup plan? Do we bridge the gap with a home equity line of credit? Do we renegotiate the price? What are your options? Do you want to walk away? Can you walk away? Can you pay the extra money out of your pocket for a higher purchase price? Yeah, I can appreciate the fact that in the past, we've had some good conversations up front about how we can solve this problem. So he says, great, you have that in your mind. Now, imagine what does excellence look like if you run into this problem again? I said, well, the truth is, even though it's only happening 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 20 times, the truth is what I could do is, you know, I can imagine working this conversation into every upfront, I'm under contract, I'm in escrow conversation, having all of those kind of if this, then that, here's the plan, here's the backup plan, so that if the appraisal does come in below the contract price, the client knows their option, the agent can go to town on try to renegotiate the price, we can submit a rebuttal if we have better comps from the listing agent, the client can feel that everybody is working towards a goal for them, and we'll have a backup plan. Like I said, a second mortgage, extra cash, something like that. Okay. She said, now that we've talked about the fact that you're appreciating there's a problem that nobody's intentionally trying to cause, and you have imagined the past, when this has worked and you can kind of imagine a future how it might work. Now let's reflect on what we're going to do on the present and how we're going to move this into the future. And I said, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my loan officer assistant to start on the rebuttal, try to get some additional comps. I'm going to call the client, triage the situation, unfortunately, have a conversation. Then I'm going to work into our template for the in escrow checklist that this is a conversation we need to be having in certain markets with certain people. And then we're just going to try to move on. And she said, that's great. That's exactly what you want to do. Appreciate, imagine, reflect, right? And then she said, there's also one other step that you want to think about when you go into solving the problem. She's like, because of course the problem needs to be solved right now. When you delegate action, so when you delegate the action for what needs to be done, make sure that it equals neutral. I might have just spelled neutral wrong. I always screw up the U and the E. Anyway, make sure that the actions are neutral, meaning when you tell your loan officer assistant, hey, I need you to go get comps, it's not a indictment of her ability to get the appraisal to come in at the contract price. When you're disputing with the appraiser, it's not an indictment of the fact that they can't do their job and it's not a negative interaction. She said, because the reality is to run a highly functional team, your positive to negative interactions have to run at about 4-to-1. Your positive to negative interactions have to run at about 4-to-1, meaning that for every time that you're going to really lay into somebody for something that they did poorly or a mistake that they made, you have to have at least 4 highly positive, reassuring actions telling them about all the great things that they've done and all the ways that they've saved the day and saved the deal. She's like, that can be very, very hard in the fast-paced nature of our business. So it might take you months to come up with 4 attaboys and 4 congratulatory conversations with a team member. You can probably come up with something negative every single day. So the idea is, as you're going through this process and you're assigning action items either to solving the problem now, talking about how you can solve the problem in the future, interacting game plans and systems so that you, in the present and the future, can solve the problem and make it part of your system. She's like, make sure that this action is neutral or positive, because where people have the breakdown, and we've all done it, is, okay, we understand that we're stuck in this error loop, we want to move on. We start to get into this appreciative inquiry. We're appreciative to ourselves for being smart enough to think through this, but when we lay out the marching orders to our team on how we're going to affect change, a lot of times that comes across as negative. So, yesterday we had a coaching opportunity with a loan officer assistant of ours of how we could say, okay, we know that you're very task-oriented. We know that you have your pipeline that you're working through, but we got a loan suspense on a very, very important file, basically because of some miscommunication with the underwriter. That's a situation where you need to appreciate the fact that the underwriter is not trying to kill our deal. You need to think back to a time, imagine a time where the file got suspended and we got the problem solved and into an approval status same day. And then we need to reflect on why that didn't happen today and how we can make sure that that happens in the future. And it's basically just a coaching opportunity to tell the team member, hey, in the future, anytime you have a suspense on a file, that needs to be an immediate huddle with the loan officer and the processor. The loan officer and the processor. You're in charge of getting them together, getting them all on the phone, getting them on the same constructive email chain, and solving the problem same day, so that we don't have a file sitting in suspense overnight. Because when that happens, we all know what happens. Underwriter moves on to the next file. Then they've got to go back to the suspense file. They've already declined it once. They start seeing monsters under the bed. Then the original suspense item gets overturned, but now there's this other problem we didn't know about. So, I just want to reflect on that for a moment, that anytime you start giving the marching orders, if you're going to try to solve this problem, we want the action to be neutral. We want the action and the conversation to be neutral. We want it to be in a positive manner. We want it to be in a coaching, growth manner. We don't want to just unload on the people that work for us. So I'm going to walk through real quick one more scenario where this comes up a fair amount. And I actually, again, started grilling the professors because I wanted to make sure that they understood how hard our real jobs are in the real world, not just in education. And they proved me wrong once again. And I said, okay, we've got a loan officer who is not producing a ton of business in our office. That's the problem. I can ride them every day to make their 5 calls, their 10 calls, and they'll get better for a little bit. They'll put some deals in escrow, and then it's right back to zero production for a couple of months. And I get frustrated on this because we've proven to them that if you just make the phone calls, if you just do the activities, the deals come. Why can't they do that on their own? So this professor I was talking about said, okay, so you've got a problem, you ride them to do more sales calls, they get a couple deals, and then a month later you're right back at the problem because they close those deals and now they have no other deals. So go for it. So said, use the appreciative inquiry air cycle. Can you appreciate the fact that they probably don't want to be a failure in their job? Can you appreciate a time in the past where they did get 2, 3, 4 loans and they were closing a pipeline of loans? Yeah, absolutely. There was this time that so-and-so, had really hit her stride. She was filling her pipeline. She was doing a lot of good stuff. And then it seemed to disappear. I really can't put my finger on why. So, okay, well, it doesn't really matter why. I mean, it matters because we have to solve the problem, but it doesn't matter why that happened in the past. Can we think about some things that she was doing differently? Yeah, motivation, time in the office, making calls, Okay, imagine what a future would look like. And I was really stuck on this one, right? Imagine what excellence looks like. And then when I finally started talking through it, professor said, hey, you already told yourself the solution. This person got more motivated and more into the groove the more time she was spending in the office. So imagine that time in the past and what it could be in the future. What does excellence look like for her? Imagine what excellence would look like. And I said, well, excellence would look like her in the office at least 4 days a week, being in an environment where she's motivated to make more sales calls and have more interaction and get more, knowledge from the other loan officers. So they said, great. So let's reflect on a present and a future. Why is she not spending more time in the office now? What could we do to get her to spend more time in the office in the future? And my thought was, okay, I think we can create a little bit better environment for her personally. Maybe I can check in with her about if there's something about coming into the office, her office mates, her seating arrangement, placement against the window. Like, is there something that's not making her comfortable? Does she have other things going on the home front that maybe we can make her more comfortable about coming into the office more frequently? And you can see how instead of getting stuck in this problem loop and this error loop of, well, this fucking loan officer's not doing any production, I just needed to make more sales calls, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm having a constructive conversation with somebody that doesn't know anything about the mortgage business about how, hey, it might just be something that's going on at home, or it might be an environment issue, or it might be a staffing issue where this person isn't 100% comfortable coming into the office, which is where she thrives, which is where she makes more sales calls, which is where she gets more deals. Now we have a potential solution instead of me having to crack the whip every other month to get these people back on track and make sales calls. So, the other AI, appreciative inquiry, it is a subject that has been really the center of a master's and PhD program at a couple different colleges on organizational behavior, management thesis, stuff like that. Again, a good jumping off point is this book, Conversations Worth Having. It will give you a little bit of the appreciative inquiry principles without getting super technical, and won't read like a textbook. And then if you're interested in learning more about this, how you use this method to run a 5-minute coaching, a 1-minute interaction, or a 5-day seminar, shoot me a private message. I'll put you in touch with John Berghoff and Flourishing Leadership Institute. They're doing great things. They've got about a 1-year curriculum training. I hope I did John justice because he is the true master at this stuff. He's basically dedicated the last 10 years of his life to understanding this, studying this, teaching it, bringing it into group settings. And without a lot of you knowing it, we're using a lot of this type of stuff in our group settings and the live events that we've been running for the last 3 years. You'll see a lot more of this in September at our live event in San Diego. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it went a little bit long, but I think it's important information and it can be really valuable to you in taking a step back and how you evaluate things. Now, do myself and my business partner Justin do this every time? Absolutely not. We're emotional creatures just like everybody else. We get fired up, we say the wrong things, we get stuck in the error loop. And quite frankly, this takes a little bit more thought. And in the moment, it's easy to say, well, I don't have time to think through all this. Let me just solve the problem, jump in encompass, blah, 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 problem solved, move on. The reality is, how many dozens of times or hundreds of times can we do that quick 2-minute fix versus taking 10 minutes to think through this and solve the problem permanently. So hope this added some value to you. Love you guys in the coaching group, even if you didn't sign up. And we'll talk to you soon here in Facebook or within the coaching channels. Bye.